My presentation is called Things That Stick, Felicité, deux. This project began as an investigation into intimacy and alienation, specifically around cultural norms for sex and touch. Looking at normative images of family and touch, and what appears to be abnormal or inappropriate when paired with the family. As children, we're taught the difference between good touch and bad touch. We're instructed to pat the bunny gently and admonished for pulling the cat's tail or hitting our brother. If you're a girl and Johnny is pulling your hair, it's because he likes you. Touch is cohesion and safety. School children hold hands to stay together. Social success hinges on fluency with touch. Social fluency is ordered through practice and visual representation. We learn that our touch is powerful and that it can be deadly or damaging to precious things. We learn that our touch makes marks that stick to things. Sarah Ahmed, feminist scholar of affect theory, describes affect as an intricate web of nonverbal cues that pass between people. Ahmed equates affect with stickiness. Stickiness acts as a metaphor for the social transference of emotions or feelings across surfaces and through people. Stickiness can be disgusting, this thing that's gotten onto you. It can be a source of frustration if it remains stuck to you. It can be a source of shame by leaving a mark on you. It can be a source of guilt if you leave a mark on others. Bodies marked by deviant or taboo touch are subject to alienation, social isolation, public humiliation, imprisonment, or even murder. Marriage and family allow social access to sexual and platonic touch. The nuclear family is a public institution, and it's also a sexual institution. People get married, procreate, and expect that their children will do the same. This is considered the natural order of things. People who diverge from this path become situated on the fringe of society. The homeless person, the spinster, the money-driven CEO, the antisocial criminal, and the sexually deviant weirdo are all made into cautionary tales. Fairy tales, the classics of fiction, and films about redemption are full of non-normative people who are outsiders until they finally conform. Family photos are designed to invoke a sense of belonging by orienting us toward a way of being, but also to give us social privilege for behaving appropriately. As the Obamas look directly out from their seat atop the nation, we recognize the formula for normalcy. We're invited in by the social recognition that we belong among them, or we know that we don't. They model family unity and love by smiling and holding hands. They follow rules of gendered touch. The prepubescent girl sits on her father's knee. The older daughter is embraced from behind by her mother. Homophobia very clearly influences what we internalize as appropriate touch, especially between men. Looking at historic images of platonic touch between men serves as a conspicuous example of the shifts of acceptable touch reiterated in visual culture. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, lap-sitting and hand-holding between men who were friends was quite common. We've been trained to view certain bodies and touch through the lens of sexual touch, so that sexuality sticks to these heterosexual men. It's telling to compare the degree of demonstrable touch between men in team sports between 1915 and 2009. The mother-daughter dyad is used as a trope in fashion. Mirroring becomes an intimate expression. Mother and daughter embrace forward. Mother and daughter cup each other. The mother and daughter dyad are sanctioned for greater levels of emotional and physical intimacy than any other gendered pair in the family. These images are reiterated to normalize a heteronormative fantasy and to reinforce the desire to possess or belong to an intimacy this profound. Brides is a commercial photograph from an online bridal magazine. Its intended audience is that of soon-to-be brides. The mother embraces her daughter gently at the waist, and they face one another. All of their visual direction is toward each other. Their faces are close, their eyes are lowered, their noses almost touching. These women look like they're about to kiss each other. To the viewer encountering this image while shopping online for a wedding gown, the homoerotic aspect might be overlooked because we're taught this is an appropriate form of intimacy. Staged in this way, this image reinforces the social construction that every woman anticipates her wedding day by exploiting the intimate and culturally eroticized physical bond between mother and daughter. So without looking deeply, I might imagine that the ritual or the image offers me love and not just my betrothed. These women represent intangibles like social belonging, love, the promise of a particular kind of future. Reiterating the image of the performance of the wedding ceremony requires and reinforces the traditional normative family. This image sticks in the mind. It constructs and constrains the way we imagine becoming wife, becoming daughter, becoming mother, and how we envision occupying these roles. Let's review. The family is a social site of belonging. Touch is gendered, and images transfer affect, which influences how we relate to them. The mother and daughter dyad is sanctioned for extreme intimacy and touch. This hyperbolic site is mobilized in consumer culture and directs desire into product consumption. So what did these images tell us about desire? These two are from dressedundressed.com. The site curates illicit snapshots of women claiming they're family. The women in this image are not sexually engaged with each other. This is not sex. What we see here is nakedness, sexually suggestive clothing, and the words, naked mother and daughter. At the bottom, we're invited to comment. These women look very happy. Simultaneously smiling with eye contact represents mutual shared pleasure that transfers affect into an implied relationship with an unseen viewer. Affect scholar Sylvan Tompkins described this as Felicité, deux, roughly translated as the shared joy of two. If you cover the lower third of the dressed image, this could be any sweet mother and daughter snapshot. What the lower third reveals is that they're wearing accoutrement generally associated with sex, and deviant sex at that. These images implicate you in a scopophilic fantasy, where all of this is explicit, deliberate, and clearly marked. Our expectations, assumptions, fears, and desires are filling in the rest of the meaning. Is our distaste for these women because they're putting their coquettishness too close to our beloved notion of family? When we look at this image and believe these women are doing something wrong or unethical, that's stickiness. It gets on us through our eyes. We willingly suspend our disbelief to imagine these women might be performing sex acts together in the same way that we suspend to believe the brides are about to get married to men. Commercial images are fantasy just as much as illicit images are fantasy. We are just less critically engaged when the marketing filter is on. In conclusion, sexism and homophobia regulate bodies through mainstream visual culture. Conversely, mother and daughter are free from the same regulations placed on others around intimate platonic touch because of homophobia. These visual reiterations of mother and daughter intimacy spring from a consumer culture that regularly invokes its own taboos around sex to create desire in the viewer, which ultimately motivates them to buy things or to feel dissatisfied with their lives so that they want to buy things. We believe photographs can convey meaning about the relationships they picture. We believe that two women positioned in a particular way are mother and daughter because their posture replicates the orientations we see in pictures, sort of like the way it's difficult to see the lap-sitting men as heterosexual. These images naturalize our expectations around touch and relationships. A willful subject is one who is reluctantly obedient. These women are willful. They're not intentionally staging a resistance. In fact, their sexual deviance relies on the framework of homophobic and heteropatriarchal society. But their overt, undomesticated, naked, and inappropriate wielding of the labels mother and daughter is a refusal to be subtle about the taboos they are enlisting. Disruption is certainly not revolution, but disruption does leave the door open for change. I walked through that open door to meet you here today. Thank you.